business. It's business time. Hang tight, we're gonna get into the business right here in a couple minutes. Baby, baby. It's business. It's business time. All right, we are here with week 17 of It's Business Time with Miss Claire Vandenbroek. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to jump into everything here in a moment. Before we do, I do want to give a quick shout out to Stitch House for having us every week. This week I am drinking the Alt beer. And what is it that you have, this delightful
I'm
concoction?
drinking a fantastic winter sangria.
Ah, the winter sangria. Very nice.
Seasonal drink of choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so make your way down to Market Street. You'll get a chance to buy a book, grab some good local. They always have 12 beers here on tap. Great food. Thanks again to Stitch House for having us. And with that, we are in it. Claire, thank you so much for joining us from Huxley and Hiro Bookstores. Hiro. It always takes a minute to not say it, the way that I read it in my head.
Well, it is Hiro, technically, because he is a Shiba Inu that it's named after, and Huxley is my Maine Coon, and so he's a Japanese dog, so hence the Hiro.
I saw that. I definitely had to Google where the name came from when I realized it wasn't your last name. I love Maine Coon cats. They're beautiful, and that's a great homage you have on the site to the two of them as well. So, let's get into it. There's so much to talk about here, and I do want to, I do try and keep these somewhat digestible, right? And so I want to make sure we get a chance to get to most of the good parts. So Huxley and Hiro Bookstore just opened on Market Street, October 27th. Very recent.
That's right.
So you have, I'm sure, a lot of great stories recently, and we will catch up to where we're at now. But I want to go back a little bit. What were you doing before? Because obviously the brick-and-mortar location, that's a big moment in any small business and any concept. When you actually see it, and you see the sign out front and everything. What were you doing before and this, and kind of what got you thinking this was the next step in your life path?
I'm kind of coming full circle here because I grew up in a family with various retail stores. So by age 12, I was working at my aunt's travel agency and then at my father's grocery store. So kind of been doing that sort of thing a long time, but I ended up becoming a professor of literature. And I work as a linguist also, mostly working with Department of Defense.
Oh, wow.
So I had that interest in books, and my mother is a literary translator. And I don't know, it all kind of came together when we found out that the last bookstore on Market Street was closing. And so my friend and I looked at each other and we said, what if we started a bookstore? We could move in there together, buy the building, live above it, and it'll be like a really bad sitcom, two professors living above their bookstore.
I love that. I'm trying to remember. What's that English comedy with Noel Fielding?
Oh, yeah, I love the Black Books.
Yeah, Black Books.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's what it reminded me of right when you said it,
Right.
But
I'm sure we're going to kill each other. That's how it's going to end. But,
that would be a good ending for a good book. Whoever survives gets to write it.
Survivor gets the writing rights. Mm-hmm.
That's funny. So this is your partner, your co-partner, co-owner in Huxley and Hiro. This is Ryan.
Ryan Eanes, my business partner.
Gotcha.
So he's a professor at Temple in advertising, which comes in handy.
Right,
I've got the degree in literature. He's got the degree in advertising. So together we figured we could make that work and advertise a bookstore, hopefully.
It seems like a match made in heaven from the small business perspective. It's nice to keep costs low, keep your payroll low and all that stuff early on, while still having a diverse, like you guys have a diverse group of offerings for this. So let's go back a little bit more. So I understand you're from Netherlands originally. Ryan was from this area. How did he pitch you on this idea? Had you always wanted to have a bookstore? Like, how did you take what's up here and start to really, turn it into something concrete? Sorry about the pun.
I think the idea of owning a bookstore is something that everybody who likes literature occasionally thinks about. It was never something I'd considered that seriously until we had a conversation with David Teague, who ran the local campus for University of Delaware. Okay. And it's a liberal arts program. And he had said that he had looked into starting a bookstore after 9th Street closed, but the rent he would have to pay was too high, so it wasn't manageable. And at that point, I was kind of looking for something new to do. We're thinking, we're going to be turning 40 in a little while. What can we do kind of to do something new, to freshen things up? And I thought, I'd love to live close to my best friend again, because I was living on the West Coast and he was here. And so we thought, why don't we do this together? This might be an idea. We can probably sustain a bookstore here, at least one of them. So.
I love it. No, I mean, I can already tell it's a labor of love. It comes from a passionate place.
For sure.
You weren't sitting down. You were like, what's the fastest way to become multimillionaires, right?
Definitely not happening.
Yeah. So this was the concept started to come about. How long ago did this kind of start to settle in for y'all? Was this a few years in the making?
Well, that's a slightly painful question, because we are coming up on 5 years now.
Wow.
The construction process was very slow. So just under 5 years ago is when I bought the building. And that was kind of an odd process. We were looking at various buildings. There was a building that had been sitting empty, Jimmy's Deli, for a long time, and somebody made an offer on it, I think the morning that we went to make an offer.
Wow.
So we just lost out on that. And then Ryan remembered noticing a sign above an optometrist down the street. And we couldn't find the building up for sale, but we thought, let's just check, because there was no record of a recent sale either.
Right.
And so we walked into the office, we got the phone number for the optometrist there, and we discovered in talking to her that she had wanted to sell for a long time, but she didn't really want to sell to BPG. She didn't want a major developer to own the whole block. And so she was waiting for somebody to come along and do something different with it. And I said, you know what? I don't know if we can pay what BPG can pay, but we will make sure that we remodel the building, keep the historic character, and we will put a bookstore in it. And she loved that idea, and so we made a deal.
I love stories where what you're going to do with a property plays into how you purchase that property.
Absolutely.
I actually grew up right over here on Broom Street, and so like this is kind of my neighborhood. This is my stomping ground. So anytime I hear a story like that, someone was holding a property and they wanted it to go to someone who was going to appreciate it, who was going to cultivate it, and so that was a conversation you had with the previous owner before purchasing.
Yes, exactly.
The building. Wow, that's very cool, because that keeps a lot of the keeps the, I hate to say emotion, but the emotion in the project. Knowing that the previous owner wants you guys to do what you said, because a lot of times there's this moment in any kind of business growth where people are like, what am I doing here? Is this the right path? Is this, family helps, friends help, but honestly, like that legacy of wanting to, wanting to do something special with the property itself. That's very cool.
And you could say that we live on the publishing bookstore block of Wilmington, because the Lafia building was actually a publisher at some point, and we just recently discovered that our exterior wall, that's the wall that we share with Lafia, is belonged to a bookstore that opened in 1797.
Oh my goodness.
It's called Thomas Company.
Yeah.
And their advertising is still on our wall.
Wow.
In fact, if you go to this second floor apartment in the back, we knew it said books, and then we were kind of trying to decipher the rest. And one day, Ryan stepped back and he looked at it and he said, I think it says Thomas. So we do some research, and we actually find a sketch of this bookstore, and it had a sign outside that was like the caption said, under the sign of Shakespeare. And apparently it had been a bookstore for around 100 years or so.
Oh my
and that exterior wall is our bookstore wall, because they didn't really build a new one next to it. So their ghost advertising remains in our living room there. So it's kind of meant to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like predestined. They warmed up the block for you. They warmed
I believe there was another one, a couple down, maybe where Farmer and the Cow is now. One of those was also a publisher at some point, or printing press, I think, something like that. So
I know this is painful for you. But so between when you purchased the building and when you were actually able to open the doors, now if this is too personal, feel free to just be like, oh, there was just a lot going on. But this a lot of this series is kind of for those who haven't purchased their building, who have an idea, who are thinking about what those next steps are, and what my hope is that those of us who have gone through those steps, who have jumped through the hoops, might be able to save them money, time, aggravation, frustration. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that process was like? As detailed
sure,
as
no
you'd
problem.
like,
and,
or as,
I grew up in the
like.
Netherlands, so there's no such thing as questions that are too personal. The Dutch are very open. You can ask anybody, oh, what do you make at work? Totally normal question.
Yeah.
Took me a little while to realize that you can't do that in America. Not a good idea. But no, so it was sometimes a struggle, you know. It was trying to get the plans from the architect and never really being a priority because there are big projects. For example, BPG runs a lot of big projects, and they're always going to be a priority for everybody. So you're kind of back of the line. We had an application lost at some point. Were some delays in realizing that we wanted to apply for historical grants, so then you have to go through approval process, have everything inspected, things like that. And it was a big learning curve just because we're new to this kind of redevelopment, you know. I've developed some smaller things, but not a commercial building like this. And so this is, there was a lot of learning to it. And I think we had to learn that you have to get past the gatekeepers in Wilmington, you know. You call a lot of offices, they kind of say, oh, sure, somebody will call you back, and it never really happens. But then once you realize who is behind all of those places, you find a lot of amazing people who are willing to help. Like people like John Kurth with the city has been amazing. John Rago, people in the mayor's office, some great people at L&I. And, you know, once we got to know some of them, they made sure things happened for us. And it became really clear that Wilmington genuinely cares about small businesses. They really want to help you. They want to support you. They are not there to make things difficult for you. I mean, if you talk to all the right people, they will make it happen for you. So I was really impressed with that. I don't think there are many cities of this size anymore where they're so willing to get involved with small business and personally help you and come say, you know, I'll just stop by the store and I'll help you figure this out.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you shared that, because in my short time kind of back in this space, I've really felt that too, where the first layer, it's a little difficult to get through. Yeah. But once you get through that, it's just a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of people. I've talked to everyone from Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce who are dedicated to helping the small business community, the Black Chamber of Commerce, and then Downtown Visions, of course. They were the ones who said, if you interview more Market Street places, you know, we would absolutely love that. And I said, that's what I'm here to do. Send me the list, and here we are. And
Downtown Visions really is the lifeblood of the downtown community. I mean, they are such an amazing resource. If you want to open a business here, you cannot do it without Downtown Visions. They know everybody. They know how to connect you. They would just randomly send us emails saying, hey, have you met this person yet? Maybe you could partner with them, which was incredible for us. And I couldn't believe when we had our grand opening. We talked to Downtown Visions, and at some point, Lani Schweiger sent me an email and said, would you like us to reserve some parking spots? And I just emailed her back on my phone, and I said, yeah, sure, sounds good. And I walk around the block, and I come back, and it's not even an hour later, and they're already closing off the parking spots. Yeah. And then on the morning of the opening, suddenly about an hour before the opening, everybody just swoops in. There's people setting up little tables and chairs out front, and we're like, what is happening? We're so confused, and they're just doing everything for us, because we didn't really know what was going on or if anyone would show up, and they're just taking charge and taking care of everything for us. I was amazed. Awesome. It was so nice. Yeah.
Very, very proactive. I have absolutely noticed that.
They are incredible.
I sat down, had a short meeting with a few of them, Mike and Lanny as well, and within a few hours, I have an email in my inbox with all the small business owners on Market Street.
Oh yeah, Mike and Lanny are on top of it.
They really were, which is very, very cool to see. I've worked in a lot of different spaces through the years, and I'll just without throwing the city of Philadelphia too far under the bus, I'll say when I worked with their similar counterparts, man, you did not feel like there was anybody behind that curtain.
Oh yeah. Ryan has been living in Philadelphia for a little while because he's been teaching at Temple, and he is very eager to get out. If not in the least because his car has been courtesy towed, I think 4 times now, which is apparently a unique Philly thing. They tow you for free, but they don't register where they towed your car to, so then you spend all day trying to find it.
Yeah.
So he is so glad he's moving back to Wilmington. He said he's missed it. I don't want to use
this as a platform to knock the Philadelphia Parking Authority, but yes, that is a common thing.
Yeah.
It's almost surprising that when you no longer have the responsibility of the car with the government, it just vanished. Anyway, we're off topic here, but Wilmington is great for small businesses.
It is.
All the resources that are all of that. So long journey, red tape, some design issues, just kind of being the little guy in a big market with BPG there.
Yep.
And then so everything eventually gets clear. October. Let's go to August, right? August, September. You're filling out your inventory. Like what? Tell me a little bit about that pre.
The
weeks leading up or months. Yeah.
There are two ways to approach this when you're opening a new bookstore. There's this place called Ingram, and they've got a massive warehouse. They work with all the publishers, and you can tell them, I have $50,000 or I have $100,000, and that's about what you need to open a bookstore for the inventory, 50 to 100 depending on your size. And so you tell them that, and then they send you something called a rosy grid, and you can kind of adjust the percentages, saying like, maybe I need a little less Christian literature, maybe I need a little bit more, say, urban fiction, things like that.
Wow. Yeah.
You can adjust it, and then they just give you everything. But we didn't want to do that. Part of what we wanted to offer is custom curation.
Yeah.
And so we worked really hard. We spent many, many weeks, essentially full-time, going through catalogs, finding, all the books that I felt were important, classical literature, all the books that Ryan felt were important, classic nonfiction, looking at bestseller lists, looking at what's going to be adapted sometime soon, and just comparing all of this to the demographics of the Wilmington area and seeing what do we think people might be looking for here.
Yeah, wow.
And you make mistakes, but, for the most part, it's turned out pretty well.
Yeah. Are you going to follow the, if it's still on the shelf after a year, then you swap it? No.
To some degree, we're going to have to probably send some things back. And we had a funny, classic ignorant two professors trying to run a real life thing issue where somebody came in and they said, do you have any urban literature? And we're like, yes, of course. Here's our urban geography studies section, which, Ryan nicely curated as a professor. And he's like, no, I mean like books that are about like crime and sex in the city. And that's when we learned that there was such a genre as urban fiction, which I did not even know about, I have to admit. And so it's a bit of a learning curve about what you actually need in a bookstore. And that became a very popular section. And fortunately, we had a local author called Ronald Limberry curate that for us. So we're very grateful to him to kind of help us out there.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with the people who find the book and love it and journey to the movie versus the people who find the movie and journey to the book. I myself, I hate watching a movie if there's a book without reading it first. I like to picture the people in my head before Hollywood shows me the 10 out of 10 attractive version of that, right? Game of Thrones is a classic example. Many, many ugly people in Game of Thrones. But once it gets to HBO, no more ugly people. And so I've always kind of, thought about the types of people who go from book to movie versus movie to book. And I guess when you're curating inventory like that, like you said, the ones that are going to be adapted soon. Like I grew up with Dune. Dune was huge. I could not believe Dune wasn't a bigger deal. Finally, after 25 years, it's getting its, big screen debut. So I imagine in addition to the awesome, delicate curation, there's also,
Yeah, there's some fun facts we discovered about that because when we were picking some versions of books that had been out for a few years but that had, say, a Netflix adaptation, I thought you buy the ones that are coming out new that say, now adapted on Netflix because then people will say, oh, hey, maybe I'll watch it or, I saw that this must be the book for it. Apparently not. So the publisher reps educated us on this, and they said, actually, people don't tend to like the books that say adapted or that have pictures from the adaptation. Yeah. They said those sell the least well because people want to, I guess, maybe in their minds kind of feel like they discover the real book. They're not just buying a TV book. They want the real thing. Yeah. And so apparently people tend to avoid anything that says adapted, even if they specifically came in to buy the adaptation.
That's interesting.
It's kind of curious.
I mean, I'm one of those people, but I thought I was in the minority.
No, that is very much the norm, apparently. And we also learned from a wonderful lady, Christina at Barnes & Noble. She was actually very kind to offer us advice. We were very grateful. She said, there are a lot of people who come in and they're looking for books that were featured on Book Talk, TikTok. But she said, don't write the words book talk on the table. I was like, what do you mean? Isn't that great? Then they'll discover other things in that genre. And she said, no, because older people may see that and think, oh, TikTok, that's not for me. I don't want any of these books. And so they ignore it. And then younger people think it's really cringy if you actually write TikTok on something. So they don't want it either. So she said, tip, put them out somewhere, put them together so people recognize them. Don't actually write it on there.
Yeah, isn't that funny? They both don't want them for opposite reasons.
Yes, exactly.
No, I mean, I get that as like a musician in my 40s or middle age, roughly. It's like
You can't say middle age in their 40s.
I
That's
know. That
middle age is definitely people older than us, right?
That didn't feel right, but it is. I feel like I'm in limbo right now, where one type of music is too old for my age group, the other is too young for my age group, and I'm trying to find that identity. I mean, it's just like with literature, where it's the same book revisited is going to feel very, very different.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember thinking Hermann Hesse's Damien was a brilliant book when I was younger, and I had a professor tell me he was a third-rate author, and I said, how can you say that about a Nobel Prize winner? And then I tried to reread it a year ago, and I stopped after one chapter, and I thought, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
So I will no longer reread books I loved from in my youth. It's better just not to know.
It can be that way for sure. I shouldn't have revisited a classic, Lord of the Rings, because I remember it flowing so well. The second time, I'm just like, what? How many new dwarves are coming in the it's like,
right?
How many elvish poems do we need to get through this chapter? But no, that's so cool. So you have this unique space. So the brick and mortar with physical products in 2024, which is so different, I think, than a lot of people picture, and I'm talking younger people. Obviously, we grew up with bookstores and things like that. But when people think, I need a book, they're already halfway to Amazon, right?
Yeah.
But, to be able to touch it, open it, leaf through, the physical goods is so... It's so hard to explain. I'm having trouble doing it right now.
Yeah.
But so... In the time you've been open, have you gotten much feedback from I'm so glad to be able to actually engage with something before, tell me a little bit of we're in an Amazon time while selling something that is really more of an intimate experience.
Yeah, that's something a lot of our customers bring up, that they just really miss being able to go in somewhere and having that experience of browsing and discovering new books. And it's actually what a sign says right now, books curated by real local people, not a creepy algorithm.
Right, there you go.
And what the things that Amazon suggests and things that they say are bestsellers, they're very odd. We've looked, we thought, what do they think is selling well? And you see books that have only, say, 40 reviews, and you think, how can that be a bestseller on Amazon with only 40? And why don't these books show up on any other lists? I mean, whatever they tell you, it's just not true. It's very odd. Not. I don't know why their algorithm tries to push these things. Maybe profit margin, I don't know. But we wanted a place where you can have an in-person experience, and people seem to really like that, and they miss that. Growing up in the Netherlands, we went to lots of small stores. You go to the greengrocer, the butcher. In fact, my brother-in-law is still a butcher who runs a butcher shop together with my my sister. And that's an experience that I think a lot of young people, especially Gen Z, they've never really experienced that. They've grown up without a world where you have all of these small shops that you go to, but they've seen it. They've seen it in movies. They've read about it. Right. And I think they long for that experience. They want that in-person experience away from your phone, whereas we as millennials, we grew up thinking technology was the future. We embraced it. We love the internet. We're excited about it. I think Gen Z feels like they're imprisoned by it, and they want to escape from that.
Yeah, I see that. So I have nieces and nephews in their 20s, and I feel that with myself too, to some extent. Where you just hit the nail on the head. Where when we were younger, technology was the new thing. We really wanted to embrace it. But now, I mean, I can't tell you how many times throughout the day I look at my phone and I wish I could just get an hour away from it. And
exactly.
Then I'll try to do that. Mm-hmm. And halfway through that hour, I'll be like, well, this hour will be better spent if I have a podcast on.
Oh, yeah. And my business partner, Ryan, he teaches mostly Gen Z at Temple University as professor. And he asks them every term, how many of you sometimes just want to get away from your phone? How many of you purposely leave it at home so you can have a few hours without it? And every semester, more students raise their hand and say, I just don't want the constant pressure and anxiety of having my phone and having to check it. They have a completely different attitude towards it from us, and that's probably why research seems to show that Gen Z prefers reading physical books over ebooks, and they go to libraries more than older generations, especially in comparison with Gen X.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel the analog, movement coming. Even in music, for years everything was all compressed and tidbitty. Now they want to go back to lo-fi. They want to go back to things that sound like vinyl. They want to feel like someone's sitting next to them playing again, rather than they're like in a space pod listening to boops and noises. And I liked the boops and noises but it's definitely, you lose something that's very personal. I think the same thing is true when you're actually turning a page. You know, there's something very, you know, the dog ears, the if you want to mark up books. You know, I don't want to trigger anybody. Some people hate the book. I personally, I draw all over my books, dog ears everywhere. I like it to look red when it's done. You know,
Yeah,
if it doesn't
exactly.
look red when it's done, I'll take it in the sauna with me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, there's something just very, very personal about that, and I love that you have. So you're right down here. What is the address?
We're at 419 North Market Street, next to Lafia and Farmer and the Cow.
Okay, gotcha. So the 400 block of Market Street, Cozy Bookstore. So we're all caught up. You open it October 27th. How has the response been? I know Downtown Vision's big supporters of yours. I'm definitely going to be bringing my mom through. She's a huge fan of the tangibles. How have things been since you've opened?
They've been really good. We've been really pleasantly surprised, and it can be kind of scary opening a store like that. And you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's brave opening a bookstore in 2024," and
Totally.
you don't know if anybody's going to show up. But to our surprise, it's actually been really good, and I'm hoping that other businesses around us will notice that. We get a lot of people coming in on Sundays, and people are surprised. Even Downtown Vision said, "Oh, probably won't be worth opening up on a Sunday.
Yeah.
The restaurants near you weren't open," and you know. But actually, our Sundays are one of our best days. I mean, Friday, Saturday are the best, but next best day is a Sunday.
Yeah.
We get a lot of people in, and they come specifically for the bookstore. And I'm hoping this will encourage other retail stores to say, you know, maybe we should, you know, open up in this area. Maybe we should be open on weekends. And same for restaurants. I would love to see the restaurants next to us open on Sundays because people are there, and they will probably come there for lunch and then to the bookstore or vice versa if they're open.
Yeah, you know, a good Sunday on Market Street. You got bookstores, you have coffee shops, you have restaurants, you have music venues. I mean, this place really. We talked a little bit about this off camera, but you know, the Wilmington kind of being on and up.
Oh yeah.
You know, that was like I said. I was like, let's not burn everything about how Wilmington's on and up off camera, but I feel the same way. You know, I've known this city my whole life. I definitely remember the downtimes. I remember the times when, you know, it was a ghost town on Market Street. And so to see all of this kind of revitalizing at the same time is very, very cool. As I've combed through a lot of the businesses in this area too, it's like, you know, you guys are kind of front and center because you're right on Market Street. You got a lot of good press and things like that. But I've been surprised at how many other kind of nooks and crannies, mom and pop stores, nail places, you know, little food stores, clothing, like there's like 5 or 6 clothing boutiques I didn't even know about until I started researching. I just knew about the one that was front and center, you know.
Yeah. We've got Space Boy down the street. We've got various athletic stores.
Yep.
Yeah, there's quite a bit, and there's more popping up. There's a really cool boutique that's kind of between 2nd and 3rd on Market. That's very high end, in fact. And there's so much happening, and that was one of the reasons we felt comfortable opening in Wilmington, because it was clear that Wilmington was a community that was very much rapidly coming up, a place where you could still buy somewhat affordably. Probably one of the most affordable similar cities on the East Coast, remarkably so, and where clearly everything was improving. And one of the we saw some of that with young people coming into town, and all these luxury apartments that BPG has built have contributed a lot to bringing young professionals in. But it's not just young professionals. I think one demographic that we had not anticipated that is a really good sign of the city doing well is that retired people, well-educated retired people, are moving into Wilmington. They live in the BPG buildings and they walk to the bookstore. We have many of them that live walking distance, and I had no idea. And I feel that it's always a good sign for a city when well-educated retired people feel comfortable moving back. They feel comfortable walking around on their own at night. You know, the old reputation of Wilmington as a high crime place in the 90s or so, it's long gone. People are happy to live here now, and that really shows how well Wilmington is doing and how far it's come in these years. Yeah,
that's wonderful. I remember when they were initially putting all that investment into the riverfront walkways and things like that, Harriet Tubman Park and that whole area, just kind of creating a safer, better lit, good environment, right? And so to add stores like yours to that, I mean, I also said I'm not gonna knock the way we do things over here too much, but as someone from Europe, I mean, you know how many cozy spaces and community spaces there are. And that's one thing that I would love to see America and U.S. cities emulate more of, is walkable places where the businesses and the homes where people live and where people spend their time are more interconnected.
Yeah, that's one of the things that attracted me to Portland, Oregon originally, where I lived for a long time, is that it felt like a very walkable community, and it's probably why many Europeans have moved there as well. My mother always said it's the Netherlands of America.
Okay.
Because it does have that walkable environment where you just sit at a cafe and then wander to some local stores.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're seeing Wilmington kind of on the cusp of that.
Yeah.
And I do think there's so much demand for that. Young people don't like malls. Malls are, once upon a time, they were, the shopping of the future. And I don't think any young people enjoy going to malls that much anymore. They're same stores everywhere you go. There's nothing unique to be found. It just doesn't really have much character. People want to be able to go to an outdoor place with unique individual stores.
Yeah. So you say character. Totally agree. When you're in a mall, it's all clean white walls and everything. And when you're in, older areas across the Atlantic, it's like the longer you stare at something, the more you realize there's layers and layers and layers. That thing might be 300 years old.
Oh yeah.
So in that vein, you were mentioning a little bit about the history of the actual building you bought. Is that a historic building? You said you were working?
So we don't know the exact age of the building, but we know the one wall dates to at least 1793 because we have their advertising still on our side.
Right.
The other wall, it's unclear, but we have census records going back at least to the 1880s, so we know it's at least that old. And I'm guessing it's actually also from the 1700s, built around the same time. But we believe that nobody has lived upstairs since the 1920s. That's the last census records we could find for anybody living upstairs. And there were weird kind of random pieces left upstairs. Like just yesterday, I was crawling into a crawl space because there was a lot of water coming down. I was worried about the roof. And there's this weird little window door thing that's all the way in the nook. I don't know how somebody would have even gotten up there or what was there, as if somebody had this tiny little 2x4 loft space in there or something. I'd love to know the full history of that building. It's bizarre stuff.
I'm going to guess for fun that it had something to do with Prohibition. They put a keg there, maybe ran a
may
tube
have been.
But no, that's very, very cool.
I need to take a metal detector to our basement because it's all dirt. So I feel like we could find something interesting.
Yeah,
and
a couple
in fact, the daughter of the optometrist who lived there said they used to play in that building. That's how they grew up, and they found a gun from the 19th century apparently in the building. So there's some possible treasures there.
There's always something here on Market Street. So
do a Huxley and Hiro treasure digging day in our basement.
That would be awesome. So. In the interest of time, I do want to keep these right around 20 minutes. I've absolutely loved having you through. I do want to give one more good, solid commercial here. Huxley and Hiro. You can check them out right here on 4th and Market Street. Come through, grab a book, learn a little bit more about Wilmington history, and
lots of great events as well.
Lots of great events. That's right. I did check out your event calendar. Make sure to check out their events right here as well on their event page. And Claire, thank you so much for joining Week 17. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Enjoy the new year and good luck. Make sure to visit Huxley and Hiro. That's it for this. It's business time. Have a great one, everybody.
See you soon.
It's business.